somewhere.
No. Okay.
Now,
There we go. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome to our, what do you call this, Judy?
uh, I have
What
no
kind of
idea.
puppet show they used to have? What was that puppet show? Oh, those
Uh,
weird
pu-
little
uh, yeah, Punch and Judy.
Punch and Judy. That's it. This is Punch and this is Judy. I don't know. That's funny.
That's what
Um,
it was.
yeah. So for everybody,
Very violent little, very
yeah,
violent.
that
He
was,
actually punched on her, and it was crazy.
well, I think you were making some violent threats towards me last time. So it feels really appropriate. You need to be punched. Uh,
I'm sure there are a lot of people that would like that.
um, so last week, for those of you who haven't caught up, last week or maybe a couple of sessions ago, we did a broadcast or episode session,
Or
whatever you
whatever.
want to call it, where Judy revisited some of her early trauma in her life, and we worked through some of that. It was really special time together, good time together, and she, I'm just applauding her because she showed a lot of courage, bravery, and openness to go to those painful places and to do that publicly. It's just like very remarkable and it's very unusual. So I thank you, Judy, for being willing to do that, not only in that last episode, but also in this one. So the first episode is called Judy Shares Her Trauma Stories, Part One. This will be part two. We're going to continue that. She's open and willing to continue this journey, so we're going to go for it. And like we said in the previous one, we don't always know what we're going to talk about when we get together. And that one just kind of unfolded. And now we know today that we're going to continue in that vein. So, but we do not sit and script things out. We just show up and do what we do and trust that God will use it in some wonderful way. Um, so let's just do a little bit of a recap from, well, actually, I just want to ask you, like, how did that stay with you and what showed up in you and your body and your mind and your heart after we had that session where you engaged with the 16-year-old you?
Yes, I have been several times. Yeah. Yeah, I was very, you know, see, I can't remember me personally at that time. I remember everything that was going on around me. Uh, I do know, like I said last time, after my father died, like Mother said, immediately I grew up overnight, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just Mother and me. So we were like the dynamic duo and knew we were in this struggle together by ourselves
Right.
for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, it's a really,
I was concentrating on her and she was concentrating on me, but she had so many things to deal with because she had to go to work. Dad, when my father, his company retired him at 50.
mm,
I believe he was around 50. They retired him, and back then, no pension, no nothing, no nothing. And he's 50. So
that
it
doesn't sound
was,
like a retirement. That sounds like a fire.
they politely put him out to pasture.
Mm,
He kept having, like I told you before, he would have a heart session and have to be put in the hospital for at least a month at a time back then.
mhm.
So he was missing work. Uh, so we
Right.
finally,
Right.
quote unquote, retired him.
Mm,
And he didn't last 2.5 years after that.
mm,
He was lost.
mm,
He was lost.
mm, mm. That's hard. It's hard to see a man give up. You're witnessing all of that, whether you're able to um, process it or not, it doesn't matter. You're absorbing so much of that
Mhm,
that's happening
mhm,
in your household.
mhm.
But I wanted to know, like after you engaged with your 16-year-old last time, how has that been for you between, I think it was just a week ago or two that we did that. How has it been with you since then?
I've had encounters with that little girl. She wasn't little, but she was in the waiting room. That's where I've spent my time with her, trying
Mm-hmm.
to assure her. I said something, I did it again today, and I said something very strange, and I don't know even what this means. I said, I'll always be with you. I'm always going to be there for you. Well,
Mm-hmm.
she's not here now, so I don't know what all that meant, but I wanted to assure her that
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to leave. I was going to pay attention to her.
Right. But she is still here because she's in you. She's part of you.
Okay,
Right. It's
fine.
just it's just a part of you. It's not a part of you that's dead. She's not gone. She's just older. I mean, she's older, but that part of her still exists. A
Okay.
16-year-old part. And so you've had some conversations with her since our
Yeah, she hadn't said a whole lot. I talked to her. Yeah.
it's great. I'm
She
really
did
proud of you.
lean she did lean into me and cry
She did
in the waiting room. In the waiting room. I thought that was good.
very good, very good. So that's great. Well, one of the things that you were saying initially today was that you really didn't get tended to, and you're like, I don't even know how I was feeling or what I was doing because everything was just going on around me, and you like
Yeah, I was watching everybody else and what was going on.
you were disconnected, you were disassociated from yourself because it was so much to take in, you couldn't quite enter into your own body. Plus, that's how you've been trained that you can't cry, you can't grieve, you just got to suck it up, you've got to go on, and that's kind of where you shifted and you just got into that mode. You had to for your mother's sake and for everybody's sake. But the beautiful thing about this opportunity is you can go back and take care of her and you can actually feel her and let her experience that. And so that's what we want to kind of do today is go back to some of those places that we talked about last time and see where she needs, just pick the thread up where she needs to be tended. So um kind of
Don't go to the dog thing. I ain't ready for that yet. I can deal with Aunt Mimi dying, but I can't deal with the dog thing yet.
right. Well, let's stay with the girl in the waiting room for a little bit at least. If you
It's a scary feeling to do that. Even now, to be sitting alone, so confused because my father had died. It was just bizarre. And nobody directed anything to me.
right, you're just picking that up, you're putting pieces together, and it's like it's putting you in trauma fog is what I call it, and your prefrontal cortex is just kind of shutting down, and you're just kind of in a zombie state, and you just start going through the motions, but you don't even know what your body's doing. You might be walking down the hallway behind them, whatever. You're just not even engaged. You're just disassociated at that point, which makes sense. It's the only way that you can handle that kind of tragedy, that kind of news. It was so out of the blue because you're, like you said last time, no, he always comes out of the hospital.
It was no big deal.
There
Yeah,
was
for him to be in the
no,
hospital, big deal.
right. There was no context for you for him not to be alive. He knew he was
Right,
sick, but
right.
that was part of the thing. He would get sick, he'd go in the hospital, if he'd come home, he'd be okay. So in
Yeah.
your mind, that made perfect sense. And so when he wasn't okay, that was too much for you to take in. It was just too much. You couldn't process that.
I was not prepared for that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, can you be prepared for that? But I wasn't. That wasn't even in my thinking.
Mhm.
Really serious. When I was in the back seat of the car and my brother looked at mother and said, "You know, he's already dead." I thought, what in the world is that with him? Why
Mhm.
would he say something so stupid?
Mhm. So you didn't like, mm-mm,
No, no, that
mm,
ain't true.
mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
And so then, even in the waiting room, you're sitting there and you're like, activities around you, but no one has really come and said to you, your father
No,
died.
no,
Can you think of when that actually dawned on you?
no. I, I'm sure mother eventually talked to me, but I don't remember it in that waiting room at all. I
Mhm.
mean, we had to go back home, so
Right.
sure. I don't remember past the waiting room.
Mm,
I don't remember going home. I don't remember any of that. I remember the day of the funeral.
mm,
We were at our house.
mm,
And I remember my real good friend Kay Winslet was there, and
mm,
she was in my bedroom with me. And I don't know, we were being silly and we were laughing. And
mm,
my grandmother Harris, Miss by the book,
mm,
came marching in there and said, "This is not the time to be laughing. You need to straighten up. This you can't be doing that." So Kay nearly passed out.
mm,
So I remember that. I remember the funeral.
mm. Okay, that's good. So, if you would like to, would you like to just go back to the waiting room and see if she still needs any kind of attention from you there? Just in your memory, just go back to that scene and look around and see, what are you experiencing in your body as you just look at that scene?
I've done everything I can with that one. I mean, really, all I've told you is everything, and just being on the back porch this week that's passed and being with her. That's that's just it. I don't remember leaving the waiting room. I don't remember riding back home. I That's just totally gone.
Right, right.
I remember uh, here in the South years ago, we used to have visitation the night before the
Mhm.
funeral, and I remember um, schoolmates coming. I
Mm,
remember that, and that meant a whole lot to me.
mm, okay.
And I had been in a sorority, but as Daddy got sick, probably from September to December of '62, somewhere near the end of that, I just dropped out of the sorority. I just couldn't do it anymore. You know, to me, it's a lot of play acting anyway. And I just couldn't. We had meetings, I think, every Sunday. I don't know, but we had meetings. We had to go. I, yeah, and you had to write a letter to leave and everything. And a girl named Patsy Walton was president of the Coquettes, and she was a believer. See, I'm not a believer at this point.
Mhm.
And I'm sure she instigated this. She was the president. They sent a beautiful arrangement of flowers with a coquette ribbon on it. I kept that ribbon forever,
Mm.
forever. I can't
Yeah,
remember
talk a little
when
bit about that. What did that ribbon mean to you?
that they really, even though I had withdrawn from them, they had not withdrawn from me.
Mm,
I've just never forgotten that. I tried to find Patsy Walton at we had a reunion in
mhm.
April, I think it was,
Yeah.
and tried to find. I went looking for her, asking was she there, and she was in California with a family member. I can't remember what it was, but I wanted to face I've never told her that, I've never
She,
thanked her for
did you
that.
get her contact information?
Uh, no, I think I can.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be really good. It's fun, just like you when you find out how you ministered to one of your students that you had no
Yeah,
clue.
yeah,
Yeah,
right,
be nice
right.
to offer to her.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Um,
that ribbon traveled around with me. I mean, I moved a lot in teaching and it went with me. I can't
oh, I don't doubt that.
I think I was actually in Denham Springs. I do remember it. And I had it upstairs in the library in Denham Springs, and it finally was getting to where it was just
Mhm.
crumbling, falling apart, and I finally, you know, got rid of it. But that
Mm,
was hard to even do that.
yeah.
It was very significant to me.
Well, that feels like they saw you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Patsy did anyway. She was a very vibrant Jesus follower.
Mm,
So,
mm.
and
Oh,
see,
that.
I keep emphasizing I didn't know Jesus at this point. So somebody doing that was just
Mm,
nice.
right. I think it's important to point that out that the context. Well, now your mom was a believer, but just not
She was, but mother was not.
not actively
And
pursuing
that's what I was going to say. She was
God.
not active in her faith. She was doing good to deal with daddy and his illness all the time. So she had become a believer when she was a teenager. She told me this much later.
Mm,
Um, and then after my father died, and then I began to grow, then she began to blossom before my eyes. It was unbelievable.
right,
She was already a believer, but it was kind of subdued, and I was just astounded.
right.
It's like we took hands and grew spiritually together.
Mm, that's so sweet. That's so beautiful. Um,
My mother was my best friend. Was until the day she died. I still consider her my best friend.
I don't even have any context for that, but I
I
love
know.
it.
I
I
know.
love it. I love it for you.
She was unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she was a steel magnolia.
She, she was gritty, man. She was tough.
Hmm. And
She really was. I
you
got
saw
that.
what others didn't see, what she had to push through, what she
Yes,
had to
I did.
absorb.
Uh, many Now my Aunt Mimi and Granny saw it because we spent
Hmm.
so much time with them. But the rest of the family just almost like put on blinders. I don't know want to know about this. I don't want to see this struggle. I don't want to.
Yeah. So not having Christ, you're 16 and you don't have any concept of God or Jesus.
I was very active in my church. We went to a Methodist church, Inslee
Mhm.
Highlands Methodist Church, and we did right at the last have a youth director who was a believer in Jesus. I'm not sure some of the rest of them were. I don't even know because I wasn't a believer. But after after I surrendered to Jesus in a youth group, then not long after that, this guy came to be the youth director, and so then I began to be fed just unbelievably well.
Wow. I see the hand of God in a lot of things here. Um, that high school PE teacher, Joanne,
As she was history teacher.
history. Oh, I thought she was your PE teacher. History
No,
teacher.
Mona Washburn was the PE teacher.
Okay, wait a minute though. This is so funny because you ended up teaching history
I
and
majored
PE.
in history and I taught PE. Isn't that isn't that isn't
And
that
full
something?
circle, that's how we met. You were my PE teacher when I was 15. So funny. I mean, I think this makes God laugh. I think he's just chuckling over all of this. How he knew back then we would be sitting here
Right,
doing this today,
right,
like, oh,
right.
you girls or something. Just wait. So, to not have God during that time of tragedy made it worse as you had no source of comfort or inner from that you could draw from inside of you, right?
Correct.
Or pray. I don't know if you even tried to pray or anything,
I don't remember
right?
that. I
But
don't
that has
remember.
to feel
Like,
so
empty. It's
what
empty. It's scary.
empty and
Empty,
scary.
scary.
Empty and scary. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I often describe it as like I was like Alice in Wonderland and I fell through a hole in the ground, you know.
Well, we're going
And
down
I
that.
did go to another whatever then.
What do you mean by that?
I didn't meet the Queen of Hearts when I went down my hole in the wall, but
Yeah.
it was
You
something.
did go down, and we're actually your child. You're the younger you went down that hole, and the current you and me were jumping down that hole to go get her, go take care of her, right? Let her feel, which I know you don't want to, but you're going to feel it anyway. You feel it anyway, whether you want to or not. Um, so I just want, if it's okay with you, let's just go back in your imagination, look in the waiting room, look at the girl sitting on the chair, sit beside her, or whatever, and just ask her, does she need anything else in that place right there?
See, see, the whole time, I picture her just, she observed my brothers. It's really strong, the picture of my brother on the telephone, calling everybody. I don't know why that's just super significant.
Yeah. No, anything.
Without look, without looking at him, it seems like I was just totally looking at the ground, just looking down.
Can you feel what she felt looking at her brother? What was she feeling when he was on the phone?
Well, see, I knew how serious it was. I knew that it was really true. My father had died.
Mm.
I sensed that I would like to scream out to him to say, "Would you please come here? Would you please come here?"
And what kept you from
But
doing
see,
that?
back then, there were no cell phones. He was on a payphone
Right.
calling long distance everybody in the family. So,
Got that. Everything about your
so
story, these things were normal. But whenever we go and, because when you start talking that way, I sense the 16-year-old go back, like, okay, like, let's pay attention to her. He's he's on the phone. It's serious. You're sensing that. This is actually happening, and you're trying to deal with it. It is true. Daddy did die. And there's a piece of you will scream out. Did you call him Buddy at the time?
buddy,
Buddy,
he's always buddy. Yeah,
please come
right,
here. Please come
right,
here.
right.
I wonder if it would even be helpful to let her say that to him in your imagination. Give her a voice.
I don't know, but I can tell you honestly, I just don't think he would have responded.
He wouldn't, but she needs,
He was too busy.
right. So here's where we can tend her, right? Sorry, buddy's not paying attention to you. He needs to come and be by you. He's not. We're gonna sit with you today. We're gonna sit with you. It's okay if we go back and do similar to what we did before. It's just okay to repeat. Because if this were like a real situation, I mean, it is very real, but if it was a current situation with a teen, you wouldn't spend 10 minutes and then go away and that's it. You would continually contact that teen, make sure she's okay, and repeat whatever you needed to repeat. So we're kind of doing it like that. So um, how would it feel maybe even to invite Jesus? She didn't know Jesus at the time. Jesus into this
She
scene.
knew a lot about him, though.
Mhm.
She did know a lot. We were in a Methodist church. Basically, it's works based.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you want your good to outweigh your bad. Uh,
Yeah.
we made pledges not to do certain things and all that. But it was never personal. It was
Yeah.
never personal.
It seemed like a minute ago you really got in touch with how she was feeling because she wanted to scream. You could feel that in your body. Just want to scream, please come here. Can you feel that even now? Please come.
Mhm.
Please come sit with me. Okay. Let's just
See,
take that.
like nobody talked to me that whole time. It was crazy.
That doesn't even make sense. It feels so negligent. Yeah. And I
It's
get
kind
they're
of
all wrapped up. Let's don't get all into the, excusing them stuff. That's the way it was back then. But it is negligent. This is a human soul who's just lost her dad. She's a child, she's a baby. 16 is such a baby. Um, and she's needing someone to sit. You're like, please come here. You're wanting one of your family members to see the,
see. I
hey, I'm
don't even
in this
remember
situation.
my. I don't even remember my mother in the waiting room at all. I only remember my brother. That's all I remember. I'm sure she had to come in and they talked about, the making arrangements and all that.
Right. But even if she did, from what I've heard, it seems like she would have just been talking with Buddy, and you're just along for the ride.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Yep.
you're having to pick up the pieces of the puzzles that are being dropped in front of you, and
I
you're
didn't
having
even know how.
no,
I didn't
but
even
you're
know how.
getting little pieces of his puzzle in the car. You know he's dead. You're getting this, and you're not wanting it. Now you're starting to see, yes, okay, he's on the phone. He's telling people, Mom's not here. You're putting all these puzzle pieces together, and it's like way too much for you to embrace at that time because everything in you is like, no, this is not going to happen. He always comes back. So there's probably, a lot of denial happening, um, and you're just shutting down because it's too much for you to bear. But what would it be like, or would you even be willing to, like invite Jesus into that scene and see how he wants to minister to that 16-year-old girl?
Okay, I don't even know how to do that.
I'll lead you.
That's fine. I'm just saying it sounds very foreign to me. So,
Right. Well, so just close your eyes and just drop back into the waiting room and tell me, can you see her? Can you sit beside her? Or just maybe even drop into her body. Are you feeling what she's feeling?
uh, I've said most of all that I can understand. She felt it's just like uh, my brain just goes blank. It was just overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm going to talk to her if it's okay with you.
That's all right,
So,
man.
Judy, would it be all right, or would you be open to, since Buddy's all consumed with the phone, would it be all right if Jesus came and sat down beside you?
So, am I supposed to answer that, or is
Mm-hmm.
she supposed to answer that?
You're
I'm
both
supposed. Okay, bring him on.
That's, that's okay. So we're going to invite Jesus. We are inviting you into this waiting room with young Judy. How do you want to show up for her? So just pay attention to whatever you see or feel or hear or sense.
Well, he's standing before me, puts his hand on my shoulder, and he's smiling.
Oh, is that confusing that he's smiling?
Not at all.
Not at all. That
It's
feels
conveying love for me.
mm, just stay right there. Mm-hmm. Just sit there with that. Just hands on your shoulder. It's right in front of you. His presence is saying, I love you. I care about you. I see.
Brings a peace. It does bring a
Mhm.
peace.
Does the little 16-year-old want to, how does she feel towards his presence right there?
It is fantastic.
Mm,
It's fantastic.
yeah.
Reassuring, comforting, safe.
Mm, that seems really important. Mhm. Yeah, so stay there with that. Is there anything else you want to show her or communicate to her through thoughts or feelings or visuals?
That's all I can do is having him there and what his presence is doing. It's
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable.
Stay right
It's
there.
made, it's like my breathing has slowed down.
Mm, that's really sweet.
And somebody knows, somebody sees,
Mm,
he sees me. He sees me.
yes. So you're not overlooked.
Mm-mm. Not alone anymore.
Mm, yeah. Wow.
It's okay now. I feel okay.
You feel okay? All right.
Mhm.
Well done. What was that experience like for you?
Well, you can open my eyes now.
Mhm.
It's a looking forward to my relationship with Jesus now, you know. I mean, it was showing me what it could be like, although
Mm.
I didn't have a clue about that then.
So seems like some hope was infused in you, or
Oh, absolutely.
mm,
Absolutely.
wow, you did a great job. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It does feel awkward for all of us, but he does come into our imaginations, and he does show up, and he does meet us, and he can rewrite the story for us. So if you would just take a minute, you don't even have to close your eyes, but just take a minute and look around that waiting room scene that you've always had in your mind and see if it looks any different now.
Just the fact he's standing right before me, that's all I need right now.
So it's changed.
Because he's standing right before me with his hand on the shoulder. I mean, that's Jesus. That changes everything.
That's good. That's good. That's great. I love it. I love those moments when he shows up like that. So we offer him thanks even right now. Thank you, Jesus, for coming in so sweetly and so kindly in the way that she needed and showing her she's not alone, that you had her even then, even though she wasn't necessarily a sheep in your fold, you knew she was going to be, and you're already tending her.
Right.
Um, and
That's what he does.
that's what he does. And
That's
also,
what he does.
I see him preparing you. Like that's what's standing out to me is like he's preparing you because he has this high school teacher. He has this college teacher, this sorority, Miss Winslet. You know, there's particular people that he's planted in your life to show you who he is, to show you who,
Absolutely.
and that's
That's very
important
true.
because with him you're not alone. With him,
Mhm.
yes, you can make it through life, right? And with him, you don't have to suck it up all the time and be tough. Yeah.
But that's true. I can remember this is totally off the path, but it may, for some reason, it's communicating to me.
Mhm.
Um, can- oops, I'm not sure I can talk about that. It's hmm, when the young woman Crystal Peppers died, who was an inmate.
Mm,
Uh, so unexpectedly, she was doing so 18 months clean, living in a halfway house, had a job, going to uh, Church of the Highlands, being fed, and then hit a blip and turned to the wrong people. And uh, I was devastated. We used to communicate mostly by text, but sometimes by phone. And she was the funniest. She was so funny,
mhm.
and she would call me, "You're my mother, my another mother." That's what she'd say to me all the time. So when I found out she had died, knew there was a one particular inmate that I needed to get to the jail as quickly as I could. So I went on a weeknight. And
Mm,
when I walked into a cell block, A1, the big one, I walked into the cell block, and the girl I went in to see was standing over on the phone. She just put the phone up and started walking
mm.
to me. And I said, "You already know." But in that cell block, and then I may have gone to every one of them. I think I did go to all four cell blocks. And I cried like a baby in all four cell blocks. And that was a good thing.
Yeah.
And for those girls to see that, you know, it was a great thing.
Mm. And so, in the same way, Jesus came to the waiting room for you. Yeah. I know he was
But it
smiling,
was so, at that point, see, I didn't have to be tough.
right?
I wanted to, you don't cry. There's a movie with Tom Hanks where he was the coach of uh, a women's
Oh, yeah,
baseball
yeah.
team, and he says, "Baseball players don't cry." Well, that's how I feel. And you don't cry in a cell block for crying out loud. You don't cry, but I did like a
Oh,
baby before cell block.
mm.
And then the
That's
inmates
the void.
gathered,
The void was getting flushed out.
right, and the inmates gathered around me
Mm.
and comforted me.
And y'all couldn't touch.
I think we could back then.
Back
I think
then,
we
oh, okay. Because I'm like,
I
I
think we
know,
could.
oh gosh, good.
That's my that's the hardest, one of the hardest things I face
Yeah,
in the jail ministry now is that I cannot touch an inmate.
I
Gee
know.
whiz, that's the way you communicate
Well,
love. And
even in your vision with Jesus, he put his hand, he
he
touched
touched, yeah,
touched you, which was very similar to how Miss Washburn touched you.
She did yeah,
Mhm.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. Um, yeah, I just see him really preparing the way for you without you even knowing it to come to his invitation to be part of his family, right? Which is really cool. I love that. Um,
I even like today, I don't know if you can see, I
mhm,
can't see. It says a piece of my heart is in heaven.
mm,
And I wear this every once in a while. There were during COVID, right after COVID, at least 6 inmates that had been in there died, just boom, boom, boom. And I know 4 of them knew Jesus. And I also have a bracelet with all their names on it. And it says something like a piece of my heart is in heaven. And but man, it was just boom, boom, boom. Uh, Teresa,
yeah.
Kim, Chelsea, and Crystal.
Mhm, yeah. Which, your story makes me understand why you had to get to the jail. You weren't waiting for your regular time. You had to
So
get
I had to,
because
I had to be there with that kid.
you were not going to let somebody sit in a waiting room by themselves.
No, no, that's very true.
Mhm.
And the minute I walked in, she saw me and started coming toward me. She knew that girl knew why I was there. She did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the kind of energy and fervor um, I want you to have towards the younger you as well, which you are displaying when we go to her. It's like, yeah, and she's receiving you really well, which is great. Um, I think this has been good. Let me just ask how the conversation has been for you, this experience so far today.
It's been great. It's been I don't know why every time you ask me that the last 2 times, liberating is the key word that just keeps coming. It's liberating.
Mhm.
Insightful. It's very insightful for me to
Liberation is a freedom. What are you being liberated from? What are you getting free from?
just that feeling of loneliness and
Mm,
not being seen, and
mm,
ignored, and
mm.
overlooked, and
Marginalized.
I guess.
Hmm. Just over there in the margin. Oh, it makes me really sad that no one really took care of you, although we do see little snippets of that, through the sororities, sending the flower.
Yeah, the young people who came to the funeral
Oh
home,
yeah, yeah,
that was
yeah.
unbelievable. Mother said that was unbelievable. The number of young people back then really didn't go to visitation and funerals and all that kind of stuff.
These are from your high school or your
Yeah,
youth group. What?
no, mostly high school, and
Mhm,
people from the youth group came too. Yeah,
mhm.
it was a mixture.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That was God loving on you. Let's just take a minute and just in the imagination go to that viewing night and see, what do you paint that picture? Where are you? What are you doing?
Um, Back then it was at Angwin Funeral Home in Inslee.
Hmm.
Back then, the family stood in the room with the coffin. That's where you met with the people.
Right. And where were you standing?
Probably very near the coffin where my father was.
Yeah. Do you
I don't,
remember?
again, I don't remember my family.
Right.
I don't remember mother. I don't remember Buddy. I don't remember any of that.
All just.
My Mama Harris and Papa Harris, I don't remember them.
Mhm. But you had some friends that came to see you.
But the friend, the
So
young
what was
people,
that like as they
it
came
was
in?
Were they
That was
hugging
great.
you?
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh
They
yeah.
were hugging you.
Yeah, yeah,
And you were receiving that?
absolutely.
Mm. I didn't know if the tough you would be like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh no, 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 no. I was too broken to be
Mhm.
tough with them. Had to be
Mhm.
tough. Here's what you gotta understand. You had to be tough with the family.
Mhm.
Tough with the family, not with everybody else, but tough with the family.
Mhm. That's so sad. But your friends were coming and you didn't have to be tough with them. That feels
Um,
like
And
another God gift.
this is probably this is weird. A guy that I dated from the time I was 14 through around 26 on and off showed up. He came.
Mm.
And when he got there, I moved out of the room where the body was, and he and I went off, and I spent the rest of the night with him, just talking to him, because I always felt very safe with him.
Mm. Mhm. So did he give you
So
the
when he came, uh, it changed for me, and I felt very safe. And, yeah.
do we want or would you like to maybe invite Jesus into the viewing scene and see how he wants to show up there?
We can't. That was just a very good experience for me, as
That was
much
good.
as that can be a good experience. I
Well, let's
felt like
yeah.
the people that came in were Jesus to me, really.
So let's just take a
And
moment.
that's where I saw that flower arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
Sonny's walk by.
Okay,
That's that's where that flower arrangement just knocked me over, man.
beautiful.
And Coquettes was the and it was big old ribbon with the Coquettes on it. So that was
Yeah,
very cool.
that felt like family.
Yes. And I felt like, I hated the way I withdrew from that group, but
Mm-hmm.
I just mentally, emotionally just couldn't handle it anymore. And so I did the best I could to withdraw from that. Wasn't the greatest way. And so I felt like they probably all thought, what's the matter with her? But they didn't act that way when my dad died. They responded positively. So that was a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very good.
I do not remember the funeral very much at all.
Do
I
you remember
remember the
seeing your dad?
what?
You remember seeing your
What'd you
dad
say?
in the coffin?
It- yeah, yeah.
Too?
He was always very proper and very manly. So yeah, he looked good in the coffin if you can do
Yeah,
that. He,
yeah.
every little hair in place and all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He was a cool dresser. For
Mm-hmm.
that back in that day, he was one heck of a dresser.
Mm-hmm.
And we were Scotch Irish, so every St. Patrick's Day back in the 60s now, he had a green suit, coat and pants that he wore every St. Patrick's Day. He was very proud of being Scotch Irish. So,
So it didn't disturb you to see him. Seemed like.
um, if, if we as a family probably had a viewing before, which was probably hard. I don't remember it. I don't remember him in the coffin in that visitation room because there's so many people
Mhm.
coming towards you. But I do remember at the funeral, seeing him before they closed the coffin.
Mm. What was that like?
It was not pleasant, but that time I had absorbed a lot of what was going on. I love the pastor that did the the service. He was our pastor at Inslee Highlands Methodist Church, and Dad had been calling him to come visit in the home. I'm sure after they retired him, and Brother Doyle said he was asking all kinds of spiritual questions and all that kind of stuff. And remember, his mother was my granny Boyd, so Daddy knew truth. And I can see that in those times with Brother Doyle, he got all of his spiritual stuff straightened out.
What strikes
Although,
me,
see, back then, I didn't understand all that. I didn't understand salvation and all that. But I really do believe my dad trusted Christ, and I do believe he's in heaven.
I see a 16-year-old that didn't get to say goodbye to her father.
That's true. I really didn't. In fact, I was trying to think. I know I went up to the hospital several times when he was in the hospital, but it might have been a day or two since I'd been there when he died, which was just a shock. You know, you have to you have to know what it's like to have somebody consistently ill in your family. And of course, hospitals are different now. I don't even know if they let people sit in the waiting room. And I mean, we lived in the waiting room. I'm not kidding you. We ate out of the machines. We slept on the floor. They would bring us pillows and blankets. We would sleep on the floor. I can remember one time when I was in college and I went to a hospital with somebody. We were going to visit somebody, I guess, and the person said, "Ooh, I hate going in hospitals." And I was just shocked because I thought, everybody lived in the waiting room and knew all the nurses and knew the routine of the hospital and everything. We lived in the hospital. It was just a second home.
Right.
But I did not get to say goodbye like I would have wanted to, because last time I saw him, he was under an oxygen tent. That's what they had back then. And I don't even remember being able to touch him.
Wonder if you'd be willing to do that today. Say goodbye.
You about done me in today. I don't know if I can do any more today.
You're
I'm like,
feeling,
I'm like zoned out.
yeah, yeah.
And see, once I became a believer, then I began to worry about my father's salvation. That was, golly, did he not go to heaven? That was a real struggle. And then I talked to that pastor a lot,
Mhm.
uh, and he assured me he really believed Daddy was safe in Jesus, and my grandmother. I mean, to be around her, you didn't have them. It's like my cousin Jean said at my mother's funeral, Granny prayed all of us into heaven. If you were around Granny, you were in the atmosphere of heaven. So Daddy, he couldn't have lived with that woman and not known the truth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It just radiated from her.
Mhm.
Billy, my cousin,
Really.
says that I am much like Granny.
Mhm.
Granny's sheep, we were in a Methodist church, but Granny didn't give a rip what kind of church we were in. She would get up and testify, just talk. And I can do that. I can just get up and
Yeah.
say whatever. And
Mhm.
he's heard me do that before. And in fact, at the little church where I was a youth pastor at 22 years old, the pastor used to turn the night services over to me some, and my whole family. I mean, by that time my dad had died, but my cousins, Billy and Jimmy, and all them would come, and Billy would say, "You just like Granny. You just like Granny." Well, hey, bring it on. That's a compliment. I
Yeah.
want to be just like her. She radiated,
Hmm.
it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
She was quite a lady, quite a lady.
It's been an honor hearing your story in a lot more detail. And I hear you saying, "Okay, you've worn me out today, Kinsey. No more." Uh, it is emotional, and it feels raw. It feels real tender. I'm gonna suggest something to you, and see. You can do it if you want or not. But I feel really bad that the 16-year-old didn't get to say goodbye, and I want to offer her that opportunity. But that's something that you can do outside of this session, is just let her write a letter to your dad. What would she want to say to
That'd be great.
him?
I like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That could be real healing too, because
Here's
what?
the deal with my here's the
Okay.
deal with me and my dad.
Mhm.
I'm 9 years younger than my brother.
Mhm.
So I was a surprise to the
Mhm.
family. Back then, Daddy was 37, Mother was 29. For the 60s, he was old to be having a
Mhm.
kid. And my brother was super athletic. He lettered in all three sports,
Mhm.
basketball, baseball, football. He was unbelievable. And then Daddy had a little girl. He didn't know what to do with me.
Mhm.
So he took me in the backyard and threw footballs to me, threw baseballs to me, and all that kind of stuff, because that's all he knew to do. And we were tight. He would sit me in his lap and rock me and tell me I was the apple of his
Mhm.
eye. That is so cool. But then I hit 13 and he didn't know what to do with me because I wasn't a little girl anymore. And he literally backed off some
Mhm.
because he did not know how to handle me. And I was a handful because by that time, I was expressive and then I wanted to start dating. Oh, that nearly put him in the grave before he went in the grave. And mother, I started going out with somebody at 14. And he nearly died. But mother knew the father of the guy, and she felt very comfortable with it. And but daddy, he was just nervous about it. But
Mhm.
so uh, from from 13 on, we had a very rocky relationship, my dad and I. I was, I was, I remember my friend Louise White telling me I was very mean to him. I would
Mhm.
talk. She said, "You talk so ugly to your father."
Mhm.
And when she told me that, that hit me, and I began to readjust that. Um, and I don't know why I did that, except that he backed off from me.
Right. I mean, that's
And
trauma itself too. It's like, wait, how do you
I,
process that? Because y'all were
I
just
didn't
really
know what
tight.
to do with it. We were tight, tight. And so maybe my anger came out because I was mad because he backed off so
Right. You
much.
didn't know how to interpret that.
No. And I remember when he died, it really hit me that I never got all that straight with him. Never said I'm sorry.
Hmm.
And don't tell me I'm going to do it right now because I
No,
can't.
I'm not going to force you to do anything you're not comfortable to doing, sweetie. Um, I
But I
I
never
think
got to tell him.
that would be a great place for you to start with your writing. Because see how it's just tearing you up, how emotional you feel right now. It's like it's unfinished business.
Mhm.
So you can finish that business. And it'll be just as
That's,
liberating.
that's good to know because when I never, I remember the last thing that I can remember we did together. See, okay, he's retired and I'm in my junior or or senior year of high school.
Mhm.
I think this was for Joanne Sumner's class. She was a history teacher, and we had to make a salt map. Remember those
Mhm.
things?
Mhm. I hated them.
And
Yes.
Daddy was a
Oh gosh.
perfectionist to and he wanted to help do that. And together we did that. And that was the last thing I can remember we
Mhm.
did together. And it was a good experience. It was a good
Mm.
experience.
Mm.
I think I kept that thing for a long time too.
Oh, I bet. I was just thinking, you can recreate that. Oh, sorry. Me.
It's okay.
He's just hearing
I
some
don't
out.
even, I don't even, do you
Let
need
me
to
let
take him
him
out?
out.
Sure.
I don't know what he's stirred up about, but no, I think that's
I
what
don't
we.
even remember what it was. I almost feel like it was a map of the United States, but we were studying world history. I have no idea what it was, but we worked, and usually we didn't work together well because I have that tinge of perfectionist in me, like him. And when he started telling me, and we usually got in a big tear, but that was a pleasant experience. I used to have to, just one more story about him and me. I used to have to cut the grass because he had heart trouble. He couldn't cut the grass. We had a electric push mower, and the perfectionist that he walked beside me while I cut the grass, telling me, "Now, no, move over this way." And every time, it always ended with me just taking my hands off of the lawnmower and walking in the house and saying, that's it. I've had it. And for him, this was very difficult. He would meander in, and in the best way he could apologize.
Mm.
I can't remember if he ever said I'm sorry, but he probably did and said, if you'll just come back out, I promise I won't say anything. And I
Oh.
always did. So I've used that over and over again when I've taught.
Mm.
We'll talk about if you have sin in your life, and I have friends that don't agree with when sin is in your life, you're kind of, there's a gulf between you and God. I won't get into that discussion. I still
Mhm.
believe there's a hindrance to the fellowship.
Right.
So I will point out when you've trusted Jesus, you always have a relationship with God. It can't break. There's nothing you can do. If you're safe in Jesus, it will thank you. But you can break the fellowship. And I
Mhm.
give them this example of my dad and me. And I say, but when we were in that house and he was standing there with me, he could not deny that I was his kid because I was just like him. And so we are God's children no
Mhm.
matter what. Sometimes we get in a little quit, and then we have to get that relationship, that fellowship
Mhm.
corrected and back in line. So
Right. Yeah.
he taught me how to ride a bike. I remember that. That was in North Carolina. Remember him running behind me, teaching me to
Mm.
ride a bike.
Yeah. How does it feel bringing up all these memories?
It's fun. It's fun.
Kind of brings them back to life a little.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm. And then we get to know them.
And remember real good things.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
When we moved to North Carolina, High Point, North Carolina, they moved him up there because he worked at Ward Baking Company, which was the makers of Tip Top bread. Ward Baking Company, Tip Top bread was a big name like Merita and all that. And so they sent him up there. That thing was in the black, and they sent him up there to turn that a bakery around, and he did it just like that.
Mm.
The mayor gave him the key to the city, and it was a
Oh,
big deal. And
wow.
we lived in this beautiful house with big old windows and everything, and it snowed up there.
Mm.
That's so great. It snowed up there.
Yeah.
So I have lots. When I think of North Carolina, everything is good.
Mm.
Everything is, it was a beautiful place. My life was good then, but boom, he had his first major heart attack there. And so the main office was in New York. So the guy used to come and eat at our house a lot. He would come down to check on the bakery, Mr.
Mhm.
Sawatka. You can remember his name. And so I'll tell you one more story before I get to when he came down. He came to our house to eat one time, and on the table was a lazy Susan. Do you know what that
Mm.
is? It's a
Right.
revolving, and it has different things. And I'm at the table, and Mr. Sawatka, the big head honcho from the bakery in New York, is there. And just as he was trying to get something in that, I went, "Hmm," and it's going around. My father died, but Mr. Sawaka just laughed, and so I survived that. I I just survived that. Jay.
Oh,
So
that's funny.
anyway, Swatka came down when Daddy had his first heart attack, and he was standing outside the hospital room in this is North Carolina, and he told my mom, he called my dad Huey. Dad, nobody called him Huey, but that guy, his name was Hugh. And he said, I'm going to tell Huey that we're going to take this bakery away from him. The man just had a heart attack. My 5'2" mother said, over my dead body, you are not going in there and tell that man that today.
Mm.
So they did give him a choice, and so we came back to Birmingham, and they made him assistant manager in Birmingham.
Mm.
So
Wow. I love your mother's spunk. I love that because that's
mother,
pretty rare too.
hey, hey, that's where I give my steel, man. That little lady right there, she's my
Yeah.
hero.
Yeah.
She's
I mean,
unbelievable
that's
what
kind of
she
unheard of. Was a very
back in the
misogynistic
that was in
society.
the 50s. See, that was in the
Yeah,
50s
you
she did
didn't.
that.
Yeah.
That's my daddy's the head honcho boss.
Good
No,
for her.
no, sir. No, sir, you're not going in there and telling that.
Right.
And he didn't.
No.
And he didn't.
Good.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it's good. So how are you feeling now?
Feel really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You brought your dad back to life a little bit. We've heard some stories. I think it's sweet. I like knowing a little bit more about him too. So I think you allowing your 16-year-old to write a letter to him to say goodbye,
That'd be good. Yeah, that'd be good.
and it can go any direction you want. There's no right or wrong. It's just whatever pours out, let it pour out. That's going to be really helpful for you. And you seem very open to that. So,
Oh, yeah, that's one of the things I regret so much
mm,
that I never really got everything cleared up with him, you know.
yeah.
Now, it was a real quickly, there was a period of several years when my brother wouldn't talk to me. And God in heaven only knows why. I still don't know why. He refused to talk to me. And when
Mm.
when so then when I was going to get married, mother said, "Do you want Buddy to walk you down the aisle?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, but I ain't asking him." So mother said, "I'll do that." And he, of course, wanted to do that. So what I'm saying is with him, we never got back to where we were before, my brother and I, but we had a reconciliation of a type. And so I'm glad I did that with him because then he up and died of a heart attack. So I'm glad I wasn't in the same position that I was with my dad.
Right, right.
You know,
Yeah. So that's where you're gonna, what will it take to make that happen?
make what happen?
That letter to your dad.
What do you mean? What would it take? I'm gonna do it. What do you mean?
Hey, geez. These are just coaching questions. What would get in the way? Is there anything that would get in the way of you doing that?
I think this is the best solution to this I've ever had.
Awesome. Okay, so
Are you kidding me?
yeah, I want to hear from you when you have that done, and hey, and well, we'll check in with everybody on our next one to say how that went for you.
Yeah.
But just for everybody who watches, I mean, this is one of the easiest and most wonderful therapeutic practices you can do. Is just write to the people,
Yeah.
write what's
Right.
on your heart, right. I mean, that's just amazing. But we're never past. I mean, you can still go back and fix that. And one of the things I was going to tell you earlier is when my dad died, um, the morning of his funeral, we were down in Gulf Shores area.
I remember that. Yeah.
I drove out to the beach the morning of this funeral, and I walked out to the edge of the water as close as I could get without getting wet, sat down in the sand, and I said, "Okay, God, now that he's with you, bring him here. We need to talk because now I know he'll listen." And
Mm.
I sat there and talked and cried and just said, "Look, I kind of addressed some things that I felt that had been unfair and stuff, and just, was able to it was like, tell him to just pull up a seat in the sand.
Right.
Talk.
Right.
You can have conversations even when people are gone. You can still do it. And there have been a couple of times too, since then in the years past, something will occur in my life or something that I know that dad would be proud of, or, that's something I would like for him to share with him. And I'll say, God, let dad know.
Right.
Let
Yeah.
God, let dad
Right.
know.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt. It's just helpful. I think it's helpful.
Yeah. Right.
So I'll be interested to see how that exercise goes for you. And again, you've just been amazing in this process. This is not an easy process to do. And you've been great. You've been very open and kind to the younger you, and you are giving her what she needs to process this, even though it's, how many years later you're giving that to her, and you're finding it
Like
liberating. And
60.
that's the lesson here. We're never done. We're never done. We never get to a place where we've finally arrived until we're in our glorified bodies, right? Till we're completely whole.
Right.
Right. We're
Right.
going to constantly be doing this. So well done. Well
Good
done.
and faithful servant.
Yep.
Sometime in the future, I'd like to share being with my mother when she died.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
It was, and keep in mind, it was 2.5 days after my brother had
I
died.
know. Oh, yes. Wait, I thought oh, yeah, your brother died first and then your mother.
Yes.
Mm, yeah. Okay. So Yes, we'll do
It
that.
was very, it was very significant being with her, and a nurse helped me walk through it. It was great. It was
Mm.
great.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, we want to hear that for sure. All right. What's this? Okay, so like before we go, I do want to say that story work looks different every time, and I don't always invite Jesus into a scene. I just kind of suss out the client to see if that's something they're open to or whatever. A lot in story work, you can go in as the adult you and attend to the child yourself in the situation, or you could just let the facilitator kind of tend to the child. A believer can invite Christ into the scene and see what they want to say. So there's a lot of ways to approach it. But anyway, it's just ministering to the younger version of yourself. So not every situation, not every story work session will look the same. I just wanted to say that in case any people out there are interested in doing story. But you'll learn a lot from watching what's happening here as I facilitate with Judy, and just see
Can you
there's,
hear? Can they hear me?
yeah, we're being recorded. Yeah,
What? I didn't know if I was or not.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I am doing this not only for myself, but for other people to be able to see what it's like.
Mhm.
So it's pretty scary. I'll tell you that. It is. It's
What do you think the
and the
scary
thing,
part is? What's the scary part?
I'm very private about my private life, and to open myself up and discuss things that I said things the other day that Sonny never heard. He listened to part of it and found out stuff he didn't, and he goes, "Wow, we both had a hard time growing up. I
Mhm.
don't know why people think I got an S on my T-shirt. I don't understand that."
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but it was good for
That's
him to hear some of it.
Yeah, it's scary because it's vulnerable, and it's very unusual for someone willing to do this in a public way. So thank you, because hopefully this will help
I
someone,
hope
and
it
that's
helps
what your
somebody.
intent. Somebody will be
Yeah,
willing to do the work. I mean, here you are,
exactly.
78 years
Exactly.
old, and you're still doing the work, and you're still, learning new things because this wasn't even in your wheelhouse, till I came around. Like, so that's,
Have I told you? I'm sorry. Go on.
go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I have a Hispanic young woman in the jail right now from Colombia, and I started kind of communicating with her. She does not speak very well, and I told her her last name is Rodriguez. Her last name is Rodriguez, and I said, "You know what? I'm going to start studying Spanish
Mm,
for you." And I've started studying Spanish. I'm too old for this,
I know.
but I'm doing it.
No,
And she
no.
loves it when I walk in and say "Hola," and I
Mhm.
can say a few little things, but I got to keep my mind working. So
Yeah,
it's tough for an old lady to learn. I took Spanish in high school, 60 whatever years ago,
yeah,
but I'm doing it diligently for this girl.
yeah. You're doing fantastic. Oh, I love that, and it's an inspiration to all of
It,
us. And this, if you've been in any part of Judy's gel ministry, um, seek out a story worker, a story coach that can help you walk through some of because a lot of what you're in jail for, have been in jail for, is your story being played out. Um, People can go to the Allender Center. They have a whole list of story workers on their webpage. I'm not the only one. I was trained by them, but there's a lot. There's a lot of people out there that do that work. I just want to let people know that. Um,
think you should put that on the Facebook uh,
okay.
page, the
Yeah.
name of the
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just the
So,
AlexanderCenter.com anyway, in case I forget, but I will seek to put that resource there and you can remind me of it. But anyway, really great session and I look forward to many more.
yes, ma'am.